Hi everyone, welcome back. This is a really fun episode. We're going to cover everything from the top 5 exercises in arm wrestling. This is my personal choice, and if I was told you could only choose 5 exercises, these will be them. The other subject we're going to go through is elbow positioning, and I think I'll just cover the full spectrum on that. So elbow positioning, body position, and I also got asked about hand position and hand control, so we'll cover a little bit of that. But before we do, this is a pretty good one. We've got 2 athletes again on the Athlete Insight, so we're going to watch it now.
Hi guys, I'm Erika Bengtsson. I'm 29 years old and I'm from Sweden. My biggest achievements in arm wrestling would probably be most recently my world silver medal at the IFA World Championship. My son was only 5 months old, so that's a pretty big achievement for me. Also been several national titles through the years. I started arm wrestling in 1997 when I was 6 years old. I had my first world championship in 2006. So I've been competing for a very long time. But most recently I've been doing a lot of super matches in Arm Wars and also in WAL. There I recently pulled Tamara Mitz and Tatiana Faria from Brazil. I have some questions here, I won't remember all. Most memorable match or moment, I had so many that I think just a memorable match for me was against Karin Tommen from it's a couple of years ago at Arm Wars in Sweden. Nothing special, but it was 6 hell of a rounds in both right and left arm. It was just a lot of fun. We pulled our hearts out, so that was a very good memory. Best advice for beginners, I think it's to find, if you really want to get into arm wrestling, you need to find a good group of people that you can train with, that knows what you're talking about, and also to train arm wrestling. I think it's hard to just do like bicep curls or forearm curls or whatever. The best training you can get is from doing arm wrestling. Probably that is the best advice. Train arm wrestling, but train smart so you don't get injured. It's very easy to get pain in your elbows and shoulders. And my hobbies outside of arm wrestling is probably my kids. I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 10-month-old son that I love to the moon and back. And my husband, Glenn, that's also an arm wrestler. And also my gym. This is my workplace. I own a gym and I have 8 employees and a lot of wonderful customers. So probably that, and also being in the nature, our dog. We're renovating our house, so yeah, like a normal person. My pre-competition rituals, I like to get a good warm-up. I need to be fully warmed up, not just my arm or like full sweaty. I like to do lunges, squats, jumping, burpees. I want to feel warm in my whole body before I'm competing. And also that probably many of you have seen my slapping routine. I don't know, it's just to get focused and not to intimidate my opponents or anything, but it gets me focused to just like slap myself a bit. I don't even think I notice when I'm doing it. So and my goals for the future is to continue to be a part of the big leagues. Like for now it's Val, that I'm very honored to be a part of, and to get a lot of super matches and to do what I love. Also to continue competing at the Worlds and being the best I can be. I wish you all the best. Thank you. Bye.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Mike Aiello, aka Mikey Beach Muscles, aka the King of New York. Just want to answer a few questions for my boy Ted Wilson and his new show. Ted, thank you very much for having me on the show, bro. I appreciate it. Looks pretty cool. Basically, I'm from New York City, United States, obviously. I've been training for about 11 years, arm wrestling, professionally. Got into it in about like 2009. I basically won 4 national titles, multiple state titles. The list goes on. I pulled everyone there is to basically pull. You know, Devin Lorette, Michael Todd, Tim Bresnan, Matt Mask. I actually beat Tim Bresnan. Check it out on YouTube. That's basically one of my biggest accomplishments. That in WAL, I would say, when I beat Ian Carnegie in WAL. But also a couple of questions he had me ask. So he was asking me. So if you had to like start training and start getting into arm wrestling, my advice to you: start slow. All right, train with a good team, people who know what the fuck they're talking about, and people who are like will give you like advice. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people like don't like they won't tell you like how to get better. There's a lot of jealousy sometimes. They see a guy with like a lot of potential, like, well, I'm not going to tell him everything. I'm not going to, like, when I first started training, I was training for like 3 months, and I was beating everybody. I had no idea what I was doing. I was all side pressure, and the guy who was running the practice was like, yo, dude, if I showed you, you know, back pressure, if I showed you, you know, a top roll and a hook, and I'm like, what is he even talking about? I didn't even know what a top roll was. I didn't even know what a hook, you know, I had no idea, and nobody would like tell me. So like, there's a lot of people like that, and there's a lot of people who are not like that. And you know, those are the people you gotta like be around and train with, because that's the most important thing. Try to absorb everything that like a lot of guys tell you, that a lot of guys who know what they're talking about tell you. And do like, you know, table time, practice, and compete. Like that's the only way you're gonna get better if you're a beginner. Things I like to do, besides arm wrestling, I like to do boxing. I like to ride motorcycles, watch my kids play sports and stuff. Just like, you know, normal shit, nothing crazy. But you know, I love arm wrestling. That's basically the only thing I do. I lift weights. You know, I lift weights and I arm wrestle. I love this sport. I love, you know, just the one-on-one competition, and just, you know, just everything about it, the camaraderie, you know, the love, it's like a big family. Like I met Ted Wilson in Arm Wars in London. He was the best, dude. We hit it off right away. We hung out the whole weekend. Awesome dude. And it goes for everybody, you know. I met everybody from all over the world, and everyone's awesome. So that's what I love about the sport. Obviously the competition, the training, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, I just want to say thank you, Ted. You're doing a great thing, bro. More power to you. Good luck with everything, and hopefully I see you soon, brother.
Thank you so much, Erica and Mike. That was brilliant, really interesting. Hope you viewers enjoyed that as well. Thank you very much. Covering elbow positions. Where do I start? I think the main thing we've got to remember is when we set up, we've got, the number one thing is making sure you've got enough room on that pad to perform your technique. Okay, so whether it's going for height, that's fine, but I think one of the big things is having enough room on the outside of the elbow to protect yourself. Okay, the last thing you want in a match is limiting the space of travel for your arm to catch the movement. So if you miss a go or the guy goes faster than you, your opponent does, you don't want to be pulled straight off that elbow pad. I think that's the first kind of thing we need to cover. Okay. So top roll, I think it's all about where you feel comfortable, because sometimes you've got to follow your opponent. Okay, so if your opponent's pushing you or pulling you one way, yeah, it's not ideal, it's not great, but sometimes you can still set your position wherever he's taking you. Yeah, as long as you're square and the refs are squaring you up, then it's good to go, but just make sure you've got enough room on the outside of the elbow. For the hook, we're talking about shortening the distance travelled down. So yeah, main thing is getting as close in, and you should, in theory, have a lot. You should be, if you're on right arm, you should be on the left hand side of that pad, really closing the match down. Another great thing to think about is the high hitting top roll. I use this quite a lot. Is keeping the elbow further in, so your whole body is coiled up a little bit more. Okay, and the idea of that is basically you're trying to gain height on your opponent by attacking up. So rather than just attacking backwards, you can actually get a lot more hand control and fire up and into the match. It's only gaining a tiny little bit of height, but that can make all the difference in a match. So with that, you would just literally have the elbow tucked in a tiny bit more than normally, and then hitting up, just punching up. So yeah, covered a couple of little points there. Make sure you've got enough room on the outside of your elbow, and if you're hooking, make sure you've closed the match down. And then for a high hitting top roll, just make sure you're coiled up enough. Yeah, should be good. Talking a little bit about hand control. Same again, gonna keep things simple. The way I see it is it's all about the pivot, where the pivot in the match is. Okay, so if it's that dodgy thumb again. So if I'm gripping up, so wherever we land, okay, thumb to thumb, that's our centre point. Okay, so if you're hooking, that line down the middle, you want to be as close in on your opponent as you can. Okay, creating a gap under the fingers. You want to fetch your wrist as far in onto your opponent's wrist as you can to shorten the distance down. It's all about leverage. Okay. Now the same thing goes for top rolling, and especially how I pull. So the further I can drop away from the match, the further I'm fetching his hand away. So it's making it harder for him to pull me into a hook. Okay, so it's all about finding that pivot in the match. So another couple of little pointers I'll give on the top roll. One thing that was told by me years ago by Andy Barker. Andy Barker was someone who I looked up to. Most of you should know who Andy Barker is. What a beast. That guy was probably one of the best top rollers that Britain ever produced. Really big hand. Yeah, absolute awesome wrestler. But don't get me wrong, he was really strong in the hook as well. But one thing he told me was about looking at the back of your hand. So if you're setting up for that top roll, one really good pointer is just turning that match out so you can see the back of your hand. It just increases your chances so much, because it's all about the pivot in that match, and you want it to be as fair, but the more advantage to you for getting out of that hand, the better. So one thing was always looking at the back of your hand. Okay. Another great little thing to think about is when you're top rolling, just remember to keep control. You see a lot of guys, what's called running from a match. Okay, so they've rotated out, they've maybe been fast at the start, whatever. They've got out the match, they lose the bottom fingers. Now all that ends up happening is you're going to lose that match because of the pure fact that you've given your hand to your opponent. You've pulled away. That'll mean your opponent can gain hand control, come over the top, press you through into the match. As long as you can keep that contact, no matter where it's at, you'll still be in control. Okay, so yeah, keep in contact with the lower fingers and always looking at the back of your hand for a top roll. Right, so it's about time for tip of the week, whatever time that is. Okay, this one is, see a lot of people doing it. When you're in a match, you should be able to keep 100% max on. Okay, what I'm talking about is don't bounce. Okay, so if you're in a match, you've got control, you start bouncing, fine. If you can bounce and you can keep 100% max power on, fine, carry on. But if you're bouncing and coming off with the load and then bouncing, all that's going to do is open windows for your opponent to attack. Okay, so you attack as soon as you let a little bit of pressure off. It only needs to be a little bit, and your opponent will try and find a weakness, try and find some control in that. And all of a sudden, before you know it, you've lost your hand or you've lost control somewhere through the match. Okay, so whatever you do, tip of the week, 100% max. Keep on the match and stay in control. So next we're going to go on to my 5 essential exercises. So number 1 is the pull-up. And it's pretty simple for arm wrestling. The main thing to remember is just to keep that wrist cranked all the time. Simple as that. Number 2, the hammer curl. Number 3, find some jazzy pants, some thick and heavy, wrist curl. Number 4 is isometric holds. Number 5, close grip press ups. So that's my top 5 of the essential arm wrestling exercises. So we have the pull-ups, we have the hammer curls, we have the thick bar wrist curls, close grip press ups, and the static holds. So I think we've covered all I want to cover this week. Hope you really enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't before. Catch you next week. Thank you.